Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. I thought today what we would do is a updated video on aiming in Naval. It's actually one of those things that a lot of people have asked me about over the last little bit. I did a video many years ago about it and it hasn't really changed too much, but why not kind of update it, kind of like we did with the controls and all of that stuff. So this will be mainly pertaining to blue water, because in coastal you don't have obviously the different aiming modes really, apart from certain vehicles, and also there are some concepts we're going to talk about when it comes to naval aiming and how it all works. With War Thunder Naval, I pretty much got everything rank 3 to 4 spaded for most nations, apart from obviously the new stuff. So that's kind of the background I'm going on. All of these ideas will work for pretty much everything in the game, depending on what you play. Recently just got, rank 1 to 3 for France, which is pretty interesting. So let's talk about naval aiming. There are two types. First of all, one thing I would like to mention is in naval, it's good to have a lot lower volume than other modes, because otherwise you're going to blow your face off. So with naval aiming, there are two types of aiming, and there are a bunch of controls which can kind of I suppose mix up when it comes to stuff, so you can change how you play. You have the main auxiliary and auxiliary caliber shooting with one button, so therefore you can fire them both at the same time. You have the turret ranging shot as well, and all of these things, and then obviously you have the mouse wheel for naval as well, and of course the type of actual aiming you want to use in naval. You can either use in arcade or realistic aiming, whereas in realistic you can only basically use realistic aiming. You can see all of the different things here when it comes to the options. So play buzzer when projectile hits the water, if you want to, I suppose. Automatic target lock, I have that off. Realistic aiming, once again, if you want to use realistic aiming in naval arcade, you can do. Realistic aiming is slightly more precise than arcade aiming, but also arcade aiming is a lot more easier. There's a lot less things you have to worry about, and follow bullet camera looks really nice, but you need to turn off if you use the methods that I use to fire. And the reason for this is because of ranging shots and how it interacts into the game. Highlight projectile 4 points. This is the one which is definitely needed if you play arcade. This will actually show you a kind of green line of where your shots will be landing, so it will be easier to deal with. And also highlight targeting 4 point is needed as well for this. So let's just talk about the general aiming and how it works in War Thunder and how I approach it. We won't talk about like what shells to use or anything like that. That will be in a separate video. So here we're using the Daring. The Daring is a vehicle which has some pretty good guns. I think it's 4.5 inches or something like that. But the main thing is they have a fast fire rate, right? You can see here that you have a fast fire rate on the guns. So number one tip when it comes to these things and how to aim with them is, first of all, use ranging shot. So what is ranging shot? Ranging shot is for naval this button right here that you can see, right? So turn off turret ranging shot and put a key to ranging shot. The reason you want to do this is simple. So the way that aiming your main guns works, if you fire using the primary fire button, it will fire all your guns at the same time, which is completely fine. But with ranging shots, what you can do is stuff like this. You can actually move the guns as you're firing the salvo, and then after you have finished firing, that individual salvo, that basically means that you can move it up and down to where you go to, right? So you can see here, that's basically what's going on. So I can actually move the shells to hit different parts of the ship as we go all around, instead of focusing on one specific point, which is what will happen if you only, fire the shells in just a full salvo. So you always want to use ranging shot for that reason, so you can actually move and attack different parts of the ship. You can see how much damage we've done here compared to what could have gone before. So that's why I think it's important to use ranging shot over the standard one. Now that we have that one out of the way, obviously you have you know, all of these different ones that we've talked about, arcade aiming and so on and so forth. For this setup, for some reason in test drive, it only lets you do the realistic one. I've no idea why, because the option just isn't there for some reason. But if you go to Naval Battle Settings, you can see here that you can turn it on and off, right? So just to let you know, it's going to look slightly different in the game, but we'll talk about the differences. So let's have a look at arcade to go forward with. So first tip, ranging shot, definitely worth using. So now we're in arcade, you can see the markers and you can see how everything is set up, right? So I mainly play arcade, so we're going to focus on that, but we'll show realistic the differences, which one's better, which one's worse, and so on and so forth. So you have a few factors that go into this. The first one is measuring range. So this is dependent on, of course, your rangefinders, which are on your vehicle. Some of them are very fast, some of them are very slow. Then, if you actually have a look at the vehicle itself that you're using, and you go into X-ray mode in the actual setup, like you can see here, the fire director, you can see the fire solution calculation time and fire solution update time. So the calculation time is when you target a vehicle, how long is it going to take you to, first of all, measure the range and measure the kind of accuracy of where you need to hit the vehicle. The update time is after you've selected it and it's done the calculation time, how long it's going to take to update to that point. Now, this is why I have automatic targeting turned off, because if you have automatic targeting turned off, it will constantly switch between targets that you're looking at, and therefore you will never be able to measure the range properly of the target that you're shooting at, which is just a pain completely. And as I said, different vehicles have different amounts where, you know, it takes. So the Spokojnie, you may wonder, why is this thing 5.0 if it's only got 2 dual 130s and not a lot else? Well, it's because its fire solution calculation time is 6 seconds and its update time is 3, so it's deadly accurate when it wants to be, and also a good fire rate on the main guns as well. Same with stuff like, I think it's the Mitscher, why is this one 4.7? It's only got like 127mm guns. Once again, it's because of this fire director. It's very, very powerful, and these guns, once again, very high fire rates. So once you target a thing, you can just start smashing it over and over and over again. It's more standard to have a bit longer of a targeting time, which is why we're using the daring here. I'm not fully spaded in this thing yet, and you can see like here how it is, right? So this is a bit more standard. You can also get the improved rangefinder modification. This increases the rangefinder's accuracy. So this one, which is at 93%, once you get that modification, it'll go up to 100. So it will never lie to you, which is really nice. The other thing I would say when talking about accuracy of guns, I don't usually expert vehicles, just because I usually spade them and then move on. But one of the things that's really annoying in Naval is the dispersion of the guns. And this is something which is affected by, you know, many different factors. But one of the things that you can do to lessen this is obviously to increase the reload speed of your guns, and also the distance fuse set accuracy, the gunner accuracy of these two, and all of that different things. So the main thing for me is to try and get as many shots out there as possible, so the dispersion isn't as effective as it would be if you have less. So it's very important to expert crews for blue water machines, and also because blue water machines in general give you more SL and also RP and all of that, you know, putting money into experting crews isn't a huge deal in my opinion. So let's get back to the actual aiming itself. There's a ton of factors which go into this, right? So if you're aiming in arcade, you have this green circle, right? So you see the circle in the middle. That is technically where if you fire your shells, they will just land, right? So there's a full salvo, and if you just sit it here, you can see the dispersion of it. Everything should fall inside that circle. Doesn't always, especially when you're moving around and also don't have upgrades for your guns. Now, you can see that we hit the calculation time and it's also updated to this point. So it will sit here. This will actually aim at the center of the vehicle. So it will sit on the center of the vehicle all the time. So sometimes if you want to hit different areas of the vehicle, you will actually want to aim slightly off of it to be able to hit it. So if you're aiming for ammo racks, for example, The Anton Schmidt has 5 single, I think 128 or something similar. So if you want to aim for ammo racks and try and pop them, you don't always want to actually aim at the circle. Instead, you want to aim just off the circle to hit different parts of the ship. The other thing you can do, once we said before, salvo fire, is actually push shots around to different parts of the ship, right? So that's generally what you want to look at. Now, if you're moving, obviously the rate that you're moving in one direction and the rate that the enemy is moving in another, you will have to course correct for. Now, the update time will do this. So, the rangefinder will do this for you, but because it has that 10-second calculation time, people can completely change their speeds within that time. So we see here we're at about 70 in arcade, so it should be over here somewhere because we're forcing, the way that physics works, we're pushing forward, so therefore we're going to have to sit, the guns behind the vehicle so they float in, and you can see how much it corrected there. But if we start losing speed in that 10 seconds updated time, so if I fire right now, look how far it is off, right? So this is something that you're going to have to get used to with time in general. You're going to have to get used to how you move compared to how the other ship moves, and so on and so forth. The more you are close to each other in speed, the closer the ring will be to the center. If you are going backwards away from the enemy, or you are basically doing this, right? If you're doing this, then you will have to fire in front of the enemy. If you're doing the opposite, so that, you'll have to fire behind the enemy. And if you are going at the same speeds, and let's say that guy there is going at -30 backwards, and we're going -30, you just have to fire in the center. Now, that is the horizontal plane. That's how the horizontal plane works, simple as. This is the same in realistic, in arcade, in whatever. And it is one of the key points of Naval. A lot of people wait for the measuring range and then base shots off of that. That's fine, but now you're 10 seconds behind a lot of vehicles which are already firing. For example, this vehicle can get out 2 salvos within that time, right? Maybe even 3 if the crew is upgraded. So you can see here, while you're calculating, if you're doing that 18 seconds with a experienced person who knows how to, set up the angles and everything like that, they can have already, in that 18 seconds, done 50% to you. Which means that you're on the back foot and you're just getting hammered, so on and so forth. Which is why I advise people to kind of gain experience on how to shoot enemies and where to shoot them before the calculating time comes in. And with the salvo thing, one of the things that's nice, instead of just doing full ones, with the salvo one, you can readjust your guns mid-salvo, so if you see the shots going in and it's like, oh, they're going a little bit that way, okay, so mid-salvo, we can push it this way, and oh, looks like they're going a little bit left, so let's pull the gun, and then eventually you will actually run into the point where you know where to shoot. Because just through experience of playing and also understanding speeds and understanding, the ships and so on and so forth. It's as simple as that, right? So that's an experience thing. So that's the horizontal plane. That's how it works. Let's talk about the vertical plane. Now, the vertical plane's a little bit harder because obviously the target isn't moving. I should probably show some gameplay here, but I'm not going to. With the vertical plane, it is simple with good old arcade. So on this, you can see how far the enemy is away. So for example, we click on this guy, he's 6.52 away. The purple, which is linked to your battle interface, so you can change the nameplates here. So this is the one we're looking at, the enemy nameplates. If you have a look at it here, you can see it's 6.50 away. Now, if you have a look at my aimer, you can see there's actually a number below the aimer as well, so 6.49 kilometers. So if I fire this gun at this point, since the enemy is not moving and it is stationary and I am slowly moving, I will hit this guy with most of my shots, right? Obviously dispersion, all of that stuff. Now, let's say the enemy is coming towards me, so therefore the distance is getting lower. one of the things you have to do is if you just drag the aimer down, you can see it has changed now to 6.29 kilometers. This means that your rounds will land 6.29 kilometers away from the position that you are. So if an enemy is aggressively coming towards you, even at an angle, one of the things you got to work on is where do you land your shots in order for the enemy to run into them as they're coming towards you. And once again, this is an experience thing, but you can use the aimer to do this, right? And if they're going away from you, so if that purple number is increasing, then you aim over them like this. So you can see 6.84 instead. So if we fire these rounds, if the enemy is going away from us, then these rounds will hit him, because by the time the shells get there, he will be at 6.84, right? So you can see there, fired over, and then if he's coming towards us, so 6.25, you want to make sure it runs into the shells as it hits it. This, once again, is an experience thing, and if they are equidistant to you, then, you know, that's the thing that you'll focus on. You'll see the number not change at all. So if they are flash, you want, if they're, you know, if you're running parallel to them like this, you want to keep those numbers the same. If they're coming towards you and that purple number is decreasing, you want to go below it a certain amount based on experience, and above you want it to be increased at a certain experience, right? Simple as that. And that's the vertical plane. So now you've got the horizontal plane and you've got the vertical plane figured out. Now you just got to understand how to diagonally hit things. So if this guy is going to the left but towards me, I would have to aim here, right? But based on our current speeds and current trajectory. Now you can wait for the aimers to do this, or you could preempt it and then push through with those ideas, which is something that obviously I promote, because just once again, the person who fires first is usually going to do way more damage in an engagement unless the armor values are a certain amount. So that's how arcade aiming works, right? Now let's talk about realistic aiming. Now you can do realistic aiming in arcade and also in realistic. The differences between them are minor, in my opinion. I don't think they're huge. The main one is, instead of the automatic pushing down of the vertical movement, you have to do it manually. So if you, you know, get this target here and you know where it is, you can see with the arcade aiming, which I still have on because I'm guessing I missed the button, but you can see with the arcade aiming, it creates that circle that we talked about and all of that stuff. Why is it still there? See, this is why using test drive can be a little bit odd. But let's go here. So we don't have the stuff. We have, of course, the circle, and then if we have a look at the settings, you can see that the option has disappeared to use either realistic or, you know, arcade aiming, because in naval realistic you have to use realistic aiming, whereas in arcade you can use either depending on what you feel like. So the differences: you have the circle, you have not the markers, but it does tell you how far an enemy is away. So 6.7 there takes a little bit of a while to actually update, which is something to take into account, but you can see it still gives you the circle. It won't highlight the projectile's fall point if they go into a target, so you won't get those green traces that move in, but you will get all the other things. Once you measure the range of a vehicle, one of the things that will happen is, instead of giving you the circle to focus on, you'll instead get this green V, which I'm guessing is more, I'm guessing is more realistic, but it basically works exactly the same way. So that gives you the center of the circle that we were talking about before, which focuses on the center of the machine and where you go. You can see here, once again, center of the machine, right? Now, what you can do is you can go up and down with that setup, but one of the things that you can also do with the setup is you can set your mouse wheel to distance correction. Now, remember that we talked about the automatic target thing, so if you keep actually automatically updating the target, it will give you the range of the targets against, and then you can just, with the scroll wheel, you can actually correct if you want to go up and down with the amount that you can fire. So if you want to go in below the target, if it's coming towards you, you can do that, and you can just scroll wheel down. keep it in the V and then fire. If it's going away from you, you can scroll wheel up and hit it as it's going there. Or if you're, if it's parallel to you, you can just keep it at the same one. I'm controlling this constantly with my mouse wheel. You can technically change the sensitivity of the mouse wheel if you want to, and then that will mean that you'll hit the target or not hit the target. But the general concepts of each aiming style is exactly the same. It's just the interface itself is slightly different, which is why I would say it's usually better to use arcade aiming if you're in arcade, and realistic where you don't have a choice. But that's basically how aiming works in Naval. Like, a lot of it comes down to how far do you pull down vertically, or how far do you pull up vertically, and also, of course, the course correction for where you want to hit on a vehicle, the guns. So, for example, we're shooting at an Eugen right now. Let's say we want to switch target to this one. We know that we're going faster than it and pulling across. We're also, at the same time, sitting at, the same distance. So we want to aim it at the same distance. We want to also fire the salvos, and then you can see we're hitting the center. So it has 3 guns on the back, 2 on the front. So we want to pull it back a little bit. Therefore, we can hit those guns on the back, right? So that's what you're aiming for there. And we've done all of that before even the thing has come in to tell us where to shoot. We've already done 40% damage after the first lot, and then what you can do is you can push down the vehicle and do it like that. So those are the simple concepts of how to aim in Naval. And the main thing you just got to understand is the speed differences between the two, and also the angle that you are away from the enemy. A lot of people do not understand firing over an enemy vehicle. So one of the easiest ways of actually surviving in Naval is turning slightly away from an enemy while shooting at them, and then you fire slightly over the enemy while they will shoot short. That is a way that will increase your survivability by whatever percentage, and it's just kind of nuts at the end of the day. So that's it, really. Hopefully that helps. Hopefully everything goes well. Hopefully you have a wonderful day. Look after yourselves, and bye-bye.
I'd just like to thank Millie Draper, Juan the Panda, Nick R. Cupila, Carrion Crow, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Merciless Reaper, Orange Tail, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, Moxie B. Young, Peter Grayling, Jerry Provolt, Bareen, Alan Hacker, Sem Arslan, Uncle Bean, Derek R. and Lafouche for supporting the channel.